Welcome to the podcast where together, every Monday, we explore hospitality in its very broadest sense. From culture and cooking, cocktails and coffee, nutrition and farming, politics and animal welfare, organic and sustainability, family and business, entrepreneurship, and much, much more. Come and learn with me, Mark Cribb, about where our food and our drink comes from, and the businesses and, more importantly, the human beings that thrive on where we decide to spend our time and our money. Sign up to our weekly newsletter at humansofhospitality.co.uk and hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. This week's guest, James Mansfield, is a master at learning on the job. When he and James Flower, a friend from Agricultural College, decided to set up their meat box business, both of them had to perfect the art of butchery from a standing start. They also had to scale up their culinary skills very rapidly so they could serve mouth-watering dishes to 2,000 VIP guests at Richard Branson's V Festival. Now, I was super excited to chat to James since, with a lot of press recently about eating less meat for the sake of planet Earth, it made sense to explore some issues around what good and bad practice looks like. Is it a case of eating no meat, or is it eating better meat? Caring more about animal welfare and recognising that how the animals we eat are cared for, what they eat, and what drugs they take must surely be part of the informed conversation. These could be tricky things to ask a butcher, but as expected, James was engaging, knowledgeable, and happy to educate. This willingness to jump in at the deep end and learn on the go partly explains why Field and Flower is so successful today. It's also because they've stuck to their principles, only supplying traditionally reared grass-fed beef, along with free-range poultry, pork and lamb. It won't surprise you to know that they've designed their own box packaging too, which is more environmentally friendly than the traditional poly box. As you'll hear now, James's hospitality career began in the same 0 to 60 vein, front of house at one of London's most famous restaurants. I very much hope you enjoy this week's conversation. James Mansfield, thank you so much for sparing the time to be on the podcast. Much appreciated.
No problem at all.
Can you just explain, as has become customary, you've listened to a few, but where on planet Earth are we, please, James?
Today we're in Lark Hall in Bath, in my house.
Excellent. So yeah, log burner on in the background.
That's right.
Beautiful. And I drove down some incredibly windy, steep hills to get here. But I love Bath. It's an awesome part of the world, isn't it?
Yeah, we absolutely love living here. Yeah, hills out the back, and it's a bit different to South London where we moved from.
You're a London boy, aren't you? So how are you coping with the change? Is it?
Yeah, well, my business partner still calls me a townie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing to be up here, and I think we love London. We still do. But I think you need a bit of space in the end, and a bit of time away from the business is always good.
Yeah, we were doing well to blend in because you've got a dog, a cat, and out of the window I can see cows in a field, and you've got a wood burner. So
That's
I think
right.
you're ticking the move to the country box. You've got some wellies, and there's some
We've
hunters
actually got a
by the door.
badger that comes into the garden. Yeah, we do.
Really?
Yeah, badger gate. It's a big thing on this terrace. Yeah.
That's the local gossip.
Yes, that's right.
What the badgers have done this week. Good. Yeah. Well, look, I'm really genuinely excited to chat to you. There's so many questions that I've got around, I suppose, the supply of food, particularly around meat and grass-fed meat and all that kind of stuff. So super excited to come and ask you questions in person. So thanks again for sparing the time. But I want to start with your introduction to hospitality was a pretty well-known restaurant in London, I think. Can you just explain your early memories of your exposure to hospitality, I suppose?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it was a great time. I learned a lot. I left sixth form and went and applied for a job at the Ivy restaurant in London. That was when I was 18.
Nice, you just started at the Ivy, no kind of build up, no McDonald's kind of
that's right.
Straight into the Ivy.
Yeah, and it was a bit of a shock to the system, to be honest. But they were great, and it was only ever going to be for a year because I was then going off to university. But we went in there, and it was not probably 9-10 months of it was a really intense experience.
What was your role? You were in the kitchen?
I was a commie waiter.
Okay.
Yeah, so at the very bottom. So you had two jobs basically. You would come in and check the sheet and be in the briefing, and you'd either be running the trays up and down the stairs all night because the kitchen was 3 floors below the main restaurant.
Oh wow, nice.
Or you'd be on the floor serving the 300 people that were walking into the restaurant that night. So they kind of looked at me and said, right, okay, well, you're the youngest guy here. You don't have any experience. So they used to take me up to the private room, and the managers were amazing. They would kind of train me kind of on the job, because I couldn't carry plates for the first kind of couple of days. And they said, look, you need to work really hard, but you'll get there. And it was it was a really interesting experience. But I was working there when Mark Hicks was the executive chef.
Okay.
So
Excellent.
I used to take his lunch up to him in the offices.
Really?
And he was a great guy.
Was he? He wasn't
yeah.
one of those yelly, shouty chefs.
He wasn't, and there were a few of them about. But Mark was, I think I always sort of describe him as, it felt a bit like what I think Cantona walking into the Old Trafford dressing room for the first time was like when I first saw him in the kitchen.
Yeah,
Everyone is a kind of quiet, and everyone immediately just respected him and what he was doing. And I think you were always wary, because he wasn't in the kitchen loads. Did he have a side to him that might be that kind of shouty
more
chef?
explosive.
Yeah, but he never did. And he was, everyone just upped their game when he was in the kitchen, no doubt about that. But he was a really nice guy.
Yeah. Well, I interviewed Mark Hicks a couple of months ago now, probably, but literally in his back garden on the south coast in Purbeck. He's got a beautiful place with panoramic views over the ocean, and he seemed super chilled. He'd had a nice bottle of white wine. It was a beautiful sunny afternoon, and he seemed that he was in quite a happy space. Apart from the fact that he said he'd never known the restaurant industry as challenging as it is at the moment. So, so did you progress from the person that runs everything up and down the stairs into the main restaurant?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so they then said there were 4 sections in the Ivy, and section 1 was kind of where they sat the very high profile. Section 1 and 2, the high profile VIPs and celebrities. And eventually, after a few months, I was there, and actually then started to train and trial new commis waiters coming into the restaurant. Which was great, but I was always a bit starstruck kind of working up on the floor because I was quite young, and they had quite high profile people coming into the restaurant.
Okay, any name dropping? Go on. Who did you serve?
Well, Hugh Grant, Liz Hurley, the Spice Girls, Salman Rushdie, Jerry Hall. Lots of those kind of types.
That's pretty cool for the for your first kind of restaurant experience, I suppose, isn't it? I remember Gareth Banner from the Ned was somebody else I interviewed as well.
Yes,
and he said the most important thing you need in hospitality, when I asked for his tips, was a comfy pair of shoes.
Yeah, that's right.
Which I guess is relevant if your kitchen is 4 flights of stairs.
That's
away
right.
from...
And the shifts were 13, 14 hours long. So you had to be comfortable. That's for sure. I actually lost just under 2 stone of weight working there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. They didn't feed you well as well, then.
We had to go in early for staff lunches and dinners, and I always felt like I needed my sleep.
Right.
Sometimes you hadn't left the restaurant till 3 or 4 because you weren't ever leaving the restaurant until the last person left.
Really?
That was the rule. Wow. So commis waiters were always there.
Last to leave.
That's right.
Yeah. Tough. It's a tough industry at that level, isn't it? Whether that bit's changed, I don't know. Some of my chefs have gone up and done stages up in London, and literally, they're only home for 3 or 4 hours. Bonkers. But I think the industry is trying to change that reputation. So maybe it's changed a little bit. But as well as serving famous people and learning your craft, you also that's where you start to get interested in produce, is my understanding.
That's right.
How were you exposed to the produce coming into the kitchen?
Yeah, it's incredible, really, because you'd start off in the kitchen normally at the beginning of your shift, silver dipping the cutlery or rolling napkins, whatever it might be, before customers arrived, and you would inevitably be in there early in the morning, and you'd actually have farmers walking in the back door. So, the vegetable guy with his carrots and someone with their oysters, and these guys were, it was just incredible to see them walking in with their produce, literally carrying it to the chefs, and that kind of obviously sparked a bit of a passion for food. I used to love watching the chefs create dishes, and actually once they started to trust you, they would bring you onto the pass, and you would start to garnish dishes. You would tell them what's missing, get the right sauces, and actually build a relationship eventually when they trusted you to, you could start talking about food. And actually we used to help on the cold section, the cold starters as well. So we're kind of like, as a commis waiter, heavily involved in that process when you were in the kitchen running the trays up to the restaurant. It's just incredible. I used to love the chef's steak drawer. I didn't know a steak drawer was the thing until I got to the Ivy, and they'd pull out these steaks in a drawer, and amazing, beef on the bone, because Mark Hicks was obviously big into that.
He was.
yeah, it was just amazing to be exposed to those people, all sorts of walks of life coming in from kind of 5 a.m. in the morning.
Okay. And had you been interested in food prior to that, or was that really was that the trigger?
Yeah, no, I had been. My dad was a big cook, and he kind of taught us how to cook at home, my brother and sister, and I've always been interested in food, and we used to go on farming holidays, and we've got family that live in the countryside, and we got farming like in the family a few generations ago. So there's definitely kind of that element to it, and it was it's just an incredible place to work, the Ivy. In the end, I kind of walked away with so many skills that especially kind of understanding people and being around people. It was just a great place to be.
Were you tempted? Did you think you'd end up in that kind of front of house role, I suppose, in the restaurant side of the industry at that point, or did you not really have any idea of your trajectory?
I think I'd already accepted a place at university, so I knew I was going to go. I think I was definitely tempted, because there's quite a big kind of hierarchy at the Ivy, and they promote you quite quickly through the stages. I think on the restaurant floor there were 7 different positions, and they kind of said, look, if you stay, then we can see you getting up to that. And obviously, like, they're really well-respected roles, and I respected the people in them. And they taught me a lot, but I kind of, at that point in my life, I was 18, and I was tired, and obviously had kind of my eyes on going to university. So,
what did you do at uni?
The first degree I did was in media. It was a bit of a Mickey Mouse degree. I played a lot of football and made a lot of friends, but after I'd done that degree, decided that I was going to study agriculture. Which is
quite unusual, I would have thought, for a London boy who studied media.
Lots of people said to me, what are you doing? I actually started out looking at riverkeeping courses, and then found agricultural college. I thought maybe I'd do something like alongside a job that I was in at the time. But actually, I went for a job interview at Sky Sports and got down to the last 2, didn't get the job, and that was kind of the spark. Was like, actually, I don't really care about this, and I want to go and do something I'm really interested in. So I looked up a course at the Royal Agricultural College, and I was just going to do a year, but I ended up doing 3. I met my business partner on day 1, and it was strange, and I kind of stuck out like a sore thumb at the Royal Agricultural College. I didn't have any tweed, but I became manager of the football team and made some good friends, and it was an absolutely amazing experience.
In some ways, I imagine that naivety of coming into it, having no kind of experience, having not been brought up in that environment, sometimes is useful, isn't it? Because you question more and you learn more, I suppose. So.
Yeah, and lots of people at uni were coming from estates, or they were coming from farms, and they kind of had their views on how farming should be done or estates should be managed. I think you're absolutely right. It was kind of I'll sit here and just soak it all up, which is what I did. An
estate in southeast London doesn't have quite the same challenges as an estate in the Scottish Highlands.
That's absolutely right. I was going to say on my first day, somebody said to me, how many acres do you own? That was the first question I was asked in the bar.
Wow.
And I said, I don't actually own any acres. My mum and dad have got kind of 20-foot garden in South London. He said, well, I'll give you some advice. Just say that your boundaries move too often, and that's why you don't know how many acres you own.
Brilliant. Okay, definitely wasn't like my first day at uni.
No.
So that little nugget of inspiration then in the Ivy, and then subsequent career, how does that evolve into Field and Flower then, and what you do now? Just explain that journey a little bit for us.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it wasn't planned from the early days at the Ivy, but through to college, agricultural college, it was definitely something that I've gone back to college, and I decided that this was what I was going to do, and I was quite adamant that the time I was putting in to being there was going to result in something.
Right.
Whereas I think when I did my first degree, I was like, well, I'm just here for the degree. Hopefully, I get a degree.
Yeah.
But I met James Flower on day 1 in our first class, and kind of said, actually, as we go through this process, where lots of really inspirational people were coming into the college, we're going to loads of really inspirational farms, and we said, well, surely there's something for us to do here. We both kind of wanted to start something. And James said, well, I've got great quality beef on my farm. It's a really extensive system. The beef's just going to market, so it could just end up anywhere, really, whoever was going to buy it at the market. So we decided that we were going to follow, she looked at Riverford Enabling Coal and follow that model.
When was this, you decided that, literally in your first year or towards the end of the course?
I think it was probably halfway through the second year we lived together, and kind of just said, we need to start. The college were really good because they said, lots of it was very academic. You were in there kind of 9 till 5 every day at college, and there were lots of, we did business modules obviously, and it was just, go away and we'd go to farms and be set projects on how you diversify that farm.
Okay.
So we were doing lots of that kind of work. We thought, well, actually, let's just now start doing projects for our modules that are actually going to help us in the future if we do want to start a business.
Yeah, amazing.
So that's what we did.
Right. So you could literally start to apply what you thought you were going to end up doing as part of your research. And
it's a good way of going to see competitors under the guise of
being a student.
That's right. Yeah, which we did, and learned a lot as well.
Okay. So what was the the trigger, I suppose, to go, right, meat by post? This is the thing that we're going to do. Did that come about through some of the research that you did? Or?
Yeah, I think there were two things really for us. It was, should we go down the catering route and do a kind of street food thing with the beef that we've got, or should we go down the online veg box model? Yeah. And actually we started doing both at the same time, and the events took off quicker. Our events kitchen took off quicker than the boxes, but we didn't know what we were doing. Like there's no doubt about it. We kind of we went to James's farm, chose a cow, and it went to the abattoir, and it was hung there for 4 weeks, and we had 4 weeks to try and work out how we were going to butcher it and how we were going to sell it.
Okay, so traditionally the meat from that farm had gone to abattoir and then just gone into the normal food supply.
It'd gone to
system.
A live market. Right. So it'd been bought by a buyer, and then it would have been finishing weight, so it would have gone off, and it would have been killed, and then it would have gone to could have been flown out the country, up the country, supermarkets, restaurants. He just didn't know, but that's what they'd done. That's what they'd always done. Yeah. And James went back to the farm at the end of college and said to his dad, is there space for me here? And it's a small farm, and James' dad is very traditional in how he was running the farm. And James said, well, actually, there might be a way for us to work together here. How about we buy the cattle from you? Right. And effectively, he created a job for himself. We both created jobs for ourselves through doing that. And so it works really nicely. It still does. And all the cattle that are reared on their farm come to Field and Flower. It's a small herd, but we take all of it, yeah.
Excellent, nice. And it feels like destiny with the name as well, Field and Flower. Did it take long to come up with the fact that you lost a little bit of your surname, but
I did.
The bit that was less relevant. Everyone knew you were a man anyway, presumably. So less relevant.
We put it out to friends and family. We said, this is the type of business. What do you think? And got loads of suggestions. I always remember the meaty boys and high stakes and all sorts of things like that. A bit cliche, but in the end, a few people said Field and Flower. Yeah. Just came up with it, and we kind of said, well, actually, that kind of works. I think it works really well. So your ethos from the start then was around grass-fed meat. You just explained, what does Field and Flower do now, basically? Yeah, well, I think it's really simple. It's just old school traditional beef that's out in a field eating grass, and it's kind of that simple from day one. Really, we're not doing anything differently to what James's grandparents were doing, and it's traditional free range extensive beef, traditional breeds. They're out in the field and don't hit their slaughter weight until kind of 30 months, 26 to 30 months. They're slow growing breeds. It's a suckler herd, which means that the calf is at foot. It's not taken away and put into a kind of shed and, fed high protein feed rations. So
Yeah, because in the traditional, so sorry if you hear me laughing every now and then, I should explain that there's a dog in the background.
Yeah.
What's your dog's name again?
I'm Arthur.
Arthur.
He's an
Arthur
annoying
every now
dog.
and again just comes and gives me a nudge in the palm or in the leg or whatever, and I get mildly distracted.
Sorry
It's very,
about
no, he's all good. He's very entertaining. I just thought I should explain in case people hear funny noises in the background. So I didn't appreciate something else. So generally, what and we'll dive into welfare a little bit more, but just whilst we're on this suckler herd thing, so what age are baby calves are normally taken away from their mums then in the traditional system?
Well, it in our system, or
in the more intensive
system. So it could be day 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then straight into being fed
so you could go on to milk powder,
right?
And then they will then move up into high protein rations,
and the objective of that is so that they can grow them quicker.
Exactly, yeah, because it costs less money, and you can get kind of, I say cheaper, but you can get more efficient foods for animals to eat to get weight onto them quicker. Whereas grass, you don't, an animal doesn't finish quickly on grass.
Yeah, okay, feels bonkers. But I want to come back to that because I've got a few questions around it. So so basically in the early days, then it's we need to not follow the traditional route, because you could have presumably tried to sell to supermarkets or shops, but quite early you decided we're going to try and send this directly to the consumer, so from the farm to the consumer.
That's right.
And there were a few other companies doing this at the time, weren't
there? Yeah, there were a couple that are out there doing it. Like the big one is Donald Russell, who are up in Scotland, and then there were a couple in the southwest as well at the time. So obviously we ordered their boxes to see how they were doing it.
Yeah.
And we started in James's kitchen, basically in Somerset. So we got the beef back. We bought a fridge and a freezer, and we made our own meatballs and burgers, and we got a local butcher to vacuum pack everything, so we didn't own a vacuum packer.
Okay.
And we said to friends and family, we'll do a discounted box if you can give us feedback on this product. And it was just a set box, so it had some roasting joints, steaks, beef mince, burgers, meatballs. And then we were both working other jobs at the time, so we were doing this as like our first year as a business was just testing this, really. So we were doing 1 animal a month.
Right.
And we would go and deliver it before work. So I'd drive up to London from Somerset into London, deliver the boxes to friends and family. And gradually, month on month, it was then people, we had a 2-page website where it's kind of like call or email us if you want to order. It wasn't e-commerce. Right. And we started to get people recommended to Field and Flower. And eventually people started ordering that we didn't know, which was always good, because our families were always going to say it was amazing.
Nice things.
We did these set boxes, but after that first year of people kind of giving us a bit of confidence, saying, this is really good quality stuff, we thought, well, if we're going to make a go of this, we might as well see if we can start an e-commerce website. And on that website, we also kind of put a note on there about doing event catering as well.
Okay. And you were doing the butchery yourselves at this point? Or?
Yeah. So, I mean, we learnt to butcher. Actually, we did it for far too long. We did it for 4 years in the end. Oh, wow. So the first 4 years, my claim to fame, not that it's much of a claim to fame, was that I rolled every meatball and pressed every burger, but I did. Amazing. So we had to learn that, really, because I think we're a business that was all about product, really, and we wanted to know the product. And if we were going to go into the murky world of butchery, we had to know what was going on.
How do you learn that? You go on a course, or you
self-taught?
We YouTube?
We had a friend called Andy who taught us to butcher. Right. So he said
he was a butcher, at least.
He was a butcher. Okay, he was definitely a butcher. Yeah. And he now owns a business called Somerset Charcuterie, and so he supplies us with charcuterie. So it's a kind of nice end to that story. But he taught us to butcher. So we got some seed funding at the beginning, and we built our own butchery in a pig shed on a farm.
Wow.
And that was us 3 then in the shed.
And did you say it was a cow a month or cow a week?
A cow a month.
Cow a month.
And then then post our kind of first year, we then decided to open up this e-commerce website, and we added chicken, pork and lamb to the website. and that would then come into our hanging fridges, and we were doing the whole thing. So we were selling the product on the weekend at food shows, and then we would go to Somerset and stand in the butchery for 3 or 4 days putting these orders together. But so a beef animal would come in on the block in a quarter, and Andy would say, right, okay, Flowers, you're in the middle, you're doing the steaks as they come off, so you can slice those. And then I was on the forequarter stuff, so the beef mince, the burgers and the meatballs.
A little bit more margin for error for your bit then.
That's right. Yeah, I wasn't trusted.
Yeah, you're not onto the fillets.
That's right. So, and we learned how to do that. But then obviously pork and lamb came in, and we were breaking down whole carcasses, and that's where our philosophy of nose to tail came from. We had the whole animal there, so we had to do something with it. And inevitably, it was easier for pork and lamb and chicken, but actually beef, we were finding that we had some forequarter beef left over, and we didn't want to keep putting it in the freezer, so we started to be more proactive in trying to start an events business, and so we did that too.
And that did pretty well, didn't it? You had some famous guests in that as well, I think. You carried on your...
We just got... we got lucky, really. It was really random, but we had an inquiry come through on the website to say, will you come and cater the V Festival, the VIP area for us? It was from Virgin. And we ended up doing that, but in between kind of signing that contract, we kind of had 6 months to kind of work out how we could make that work. I mean, it's 2,000 people served in 3 or 4 hours for 2 days.
Wow.
And it was interesting. It went really well. But between us getting that inquiry and going to that, we started to do smaller private events and food shows, and learning, how to cook burgers and sell. I mean,
I like the fact you just said yes and then worked it out afterwards. We'll say
we couldn't turn that opportunity down.
Yeah, because you were actually doing the cooking for that as well, then, were you?
So
fully self-taught. The chefs are. You didn't get Mark Hicks to come in and help you out. You weren't that buddy friendly with him at the Ivy.
Well, we did actually contact him and say, can we get your advice? Not on that, it was a bit later on, but about our business and what you think we should be doing and whether we should be doing any restaurant trade. So we actually met him. He was really, really nice. We went to his restaurant with him, and it was I don't think he remembered who I was, but that was fine. We were out there trying to get advice from as many people as possible.
That's the one that keeps coming up in this industry, that is such a decent bunch of human beings in hospitality, basically, that they do all seem willing in the main to kind of help each other out. And
definitely. It's a really friendly industry. And everyone's very supportive. I think you've got to be, really. Because I think everyone's fighting the same battles.
Yeah, that's good. So in those early days, you're part event company, part meat box company. How long did you run that sort of double life? Because that's hard graft. Just doing events is hard enough. Let alone you're the chef, you're the butcher, you're packing the boxes, you're doing the whole shebang. How long did you keep that going for?
It was 2 years, actually. And the last event...
Did you see daylight?
Yeah, exactly. It was because our online sales were growing, and we couldn't keep working 7 days a week, especially the type of events we're doing on the weekend obviously required long hours, and we weren't getting much rest, and we weren't focused on where the opportunity was. I don't think either of us had as much as a desire to grow the events business as we did the online sales. So it was actually, we stopped. The last event we ever did was Glastonbury 2011, that was the year that Beyonce played, and we just...
Was this the VIP stuff again?
No, we actually...
With the masses?
That's right, yeah. And it's quite... The sums involved at Glastonbury were quite scary as well. We walked on site having spent £18,000 to kind of be there, from the pitch to the product to the team, to the hiring of equipment, water, etc. So... Yeah, it was tough, and we just about broke even.
Wow.
And we kind of said, look, we were on site for 7 days. I think half of our team left before Glastonbury even started because it was torrential rain and people weren't sleeping, and we were kind of waterlogged. And we're like, maybe this isn't the best thing to be doing.
So harsh, and it's make or break those kind of things, isn't it?
It is, and you have to take a long-term view as well. Yeah. People that do Glastonbury do it and look at it, I think, over like 5 years, not just on 1 year.
Yeah.
But they're obviously, again, we were kind of winging it. We weren't a proper event caterer.
No, that's okay if you've got the resources to cope with a bad year, but if you go in and lose a load of cash, then that's tough, isn't it? So, okay, so you part the events, and did you have a business mentor who helped you? Because sometimes it's hard to see the wood for the trees when you're buried in the actual day job then, isn't it? Did somebody come and go, you know what, why don't you, focus on the home delivery side, or did you just realise on your own?
No, I think we realised on our own, but we did have a business mentor. So one of our early customers was Paul Linley, who started Ella's Kitchen, the baby food company, and he became a customer and then said, if you ever want any advice and stuff, let me know. And so we used to meet him and get his advice on things. So that was really valuable for us.
Nice. It's all about your network, isn't it? It's not bad if you can go to Ella's Kitchen and Mark Hicks to pick their brains. That's good going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, we were very lucky in the advice we got. But no, I think we were excited about the possibility of being the kind of Riverford or Abel and Cole in our space.
Yeah.
And that's what was really driving the decision to do that.
Okay. And what year was that?
2011.
Okay.
Summer of 2011.
Oh.
Yeah.
So was it at that point then that you needed to start looking at bringing on more other farmers and outsourcing the butchery? And was that easy, finding other people that met your kind of criteria, I guess?
Yeah, it was, because there's lots of the same type of systems in the West Country, in Somerset even, that James knew. So we were very lucky in the fact that we could go and kind of handpick and approach farmers that we knew and knew that they were farmers the right breed, with the right system, the right diet, and we'd go and stand on the farm and choose those animals, and it was fantastic. And in the end, we ended up, people were still are knocking on the door. We probably get a new producer every week saying,
that's really good, isn't it? So chatting about them a little bit then, on your website, and I think in some of the stuff I've read about you, Stuart, the chicken farmer, comes up regularly as being a sort of what's the word? A kind of a good benchmark, I suppose, of the kind of thing. Why is how Stuart farms the right approach? And can you just tell us a little bit about him and how he farms? Yeah, sure. Yeah, we love Stu. We've worked with Stu for five or 6 years now. So we originally had a organic chicken farmer, who eventually, I think, went out of business. So Stu is not organic, he's free range, and he's based just outside of Radstock. He does all our poultry, including some game as well. So he does geese and turkeys at Christmas for us, and we've actually met him last week to talk about that. So they've been on the ground since July, the turkeys. But he's a free range chicken farmer, and he's at the top of his game. He's a young guy, family farm, and he believes in free range chicken being, in flocks of 200, making sure the chickens are actually outside. He's creating habitats which encourage them to go outside, and he's giving it's not a kind of fast growing chicken breed like a Ross. It's a Cotswold White. It's a slow growing breed, and he's rearing them up to an age of 71 days, which is double the amount you would find on some even free range chickens in the supermarket. Yeah, amazing. So I think chickens is always an example we give, and I'm still not entirely happy with the compromise that we make, but we're working on this. But the kind of standards of chicken, you've got your kind of worst case scenario, maybe imported from Thailand, injected with a saline solution to draw in water and add weight and all that kind of stuff. Then you've got your 35-day chicken, grows so quickly it can't even develop legs and ends up sat in its own poo, haven't you? 56 days seems to be the next level up, of which there are even some alleged free range and red tractor, which we'll come on to in a minute. So I've got some questions around that. And then, 70 days is the kind of, the key scenario, I suppose. You mentioned him not being organic. Is that a conscious decision? And do you know the details behind that as to why? Or
I think it's similar to why we went organic when we started our business.
Yep.
James's dad is effectively running an organic farm. There's no inputs going into the land, but he was a guy that kind of said, well, I'm happy with how I'm farming and I don't need the label. We started in the recession. We looked at it and thought, well, should we put it through conversion or not? And we kind of decided that actually the customer, if we conveyed our message correctly, which was, we look at farms on an individual basis, extensive, free range, low input, we would be fine. And we didn't want to have to put that organic label on, because I think it had a perceived value of, being more expensive. And in a recession when we started, that was something that we were keen to avoid. So we had a chat with Stu, and he's not organic, but he's very proud of the way that he's running his system. I think there aren't many things that would stop him from being organic, but he's growing home growing cereals on his farm to feed his chickens.
Okay.
And
I was going to ask about the feed and where that comes from, because that's often the thing that gets in the way of organic accreditation.
Exactly.
Is the feed.
So, yeah, that's it. So I think, if that's something that, you feel strongly about, then, there are loads of really great organic chicken farmers out there as well. And we're kind of saying, well, this is Stu's system. If you buy into it and it's proper free range chicken and the animals are very happy and, they're eating cereals that grow on the farm, then it's okay.
I think that's got to be the key, isn't it? And you're doing it. And, I feel for the average consumer, because they don't have that opportunity, but then it's why they need to buy from companies like yours, I suppose. But the key thing is to go and meet your supplier, isn't it? Meet your producer, look them in the eye and find out what compromises they're making. And if it's simply the case of not jumping through the often sort of financial implications of jumping through the organic accreditation hoops, we've dealt with farmers who are way too small to go through that kind of process, and it seems pointless. And it's just meeting those people and trusting why that's the case, I suppose. So am I right in saying that rather than following an external accreditation, you've basically come up with your own set of guidelines? Is that right? And can you just explain a bit about what do you look for then when you go out and meet a farmer and look them in the eye?
Yeah. So we, and it's really important to us that if we're marketing free range and, putting the farmer's face on our website, that we're out there in the field with them. So we do that actively. James Flower, my business partner, also his sister's working in the business, Claire, at the moment, and she's writing our own set of welfare standards. So we've finished our chicken welfare standards, and we're now writing our lamb and beef and pork. Right. And we're doing that because, as you said earlier, there are certain standards that smaller farmers are struggling to kind of hit in terms of the accreditation and also the cost as well. And I think it's, some standards are quite sort of broad stroke in what they do. And we're trying to be more individual and look at our farmers on an individual basis.
And then going back, so we touched on this a little bit earlier with beef. So I want to understand the traditional approach. And I had a good chat with Tom Foote from the Open Air Dairy about this, and understanding in the dairy industry, the compromises are made with regards to animals living in barns. And Tom was very good actually at saying, look, it's not a kind of a right or wrong approach. You decide your approach and kind of where your level of compromise is, because in his system, he doesn't have milk for 3 months of the year, and to a lot of people, that's not going to be an ideal level of compromise. But he was very good at explaining, I suppose, the difference between intensive farming, should we say, rather than traditional, because traditional actually is what you're going back to in many ways, isn't it? But intensive farms in dairy, brought up in a barn, their whole lives, or at the very least, brought back to the barn twice a day for milking, whereas his cows are outside all of the time. So intensive meat cattle farming, what does that involve? So you say the cattle's potentially born, taken away at a couple of days old, and fed. Are they kept in a barn sort of most of their lives? My understanding is that we grow them for size and for girth and for speed of growth. Can you just explain about how the intensive system works, and then we'll talk about the differences?
Yeah, sure. I worked on a beef farm that was supplying a supermarket, and they would take dairy calves at 3 or 4 days. They would come in and they'd be put onto powdered milk, and they would then grow, obviously, away from their mothers up to a point where they were then weaned onto high protein feed, and they would be in a shed, and the farmers and farm managers would be looking at daily weight gain. So it's all about how quickly that animal was growing. And they would try and finish them at 15, 16 months. And they would predominantly be inside. The problem was that they were obviously feeding them high protein feedstuff. So that might be bread, cake, oranges, fruit, all sorts of things that a cow shouldn't eat, really. And it was obviously a kind of race to the bottom. So it was all about trying to produce this meat as quickly as possible so it could be sold in the supermarket for as cheaply as possible. And, cows should be outside eating grass. And I think, you look at why that product was being produced, and I think it's because the supermarkets put a demand on farmers. I know there's a lot of pressure on farmers that are in contracts to produce that type of beef. And I think we also have a responsibility as a consumer to say, why is that pack of beef mince £1, or why is that chicken £3? And I think we need to ask more questions when we're in the supermarket about those products. But so that's, an overview of a fairly intensive or very intensive beef system. And then the opposite is how James rears his beef, which is, outdoors on grass. There are no buildings. There's no high protein feed. They're traditional breeds, and they're being slaughtered at 26 to 30 months. It's a traditional beef system. So they're two very different things. But I think currently there needs to be more education about beef systems, because they really are kind of black and white in terms of and obviously there are farms in the middle as well. But there's loads of different farming systems, and the way that we're producing beef isn't just as it's being portrayed in the media. And I think I don't know, but lots of what we see, lots of stuff in the press at the moment, I think a lot of it comes from America and the feedlot systems that are out there, and emissions, and see lots of documentaries on Netflix about that, and they're very, very different systems to what we're doing in the southwest of England, rearing cattle on grass and sheep on grass.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think it is about education. I don't think the consumer would be happy. Most consumers, we're very in a privileged position probably, where we can decide whether to spend a little bit more money on the meat that we buy. Having said that, I do think that one of the opportunities is just to buy meat less often.
Definitely, and we shouldn't be buying meat every day of the week. We shouldn't be eating it every day of the week. It's it should be a product that is in our diets, I think 2 or 3 times a week, and we have lots of customers that tell us that they budget with our boxes, so they will buy a Field and Flower box. They won't buy any other meat from anywhere else, and that's it. And they'll have that over 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and I think that's the way to do it.
It's interesting that you say that, because I imagine there's a lot of butchers who would just say, buy as much as my meat as possible. I need to take the cash. Why do you say, have meat only 2 or 3 times a week?
Because it's not sustainable the way that we're currently rearing meat, in the world. Like we will not be able to keep eating cheap meat like in the years that come. I think we need to be more responsible. We need to be looking at individual farms and systems and say, this is a type of meat that we're comfortable eating. It's not been intensively farmed, and we're big advocates of that. We think that our diet has to be balanced. Everything has to be in moderation. Certainly. I think we've got a set of customers that kind of appreciate that. There's a compromise somewhere, and if we can kind of help with that, then hopefully the business keeps going from strength to strength.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And we spoke about this before we started chatting, where I gave you the admission that I've been following a plant-based diet for the last 18 months because I wanted to learn the flip side of the debate and the argument, I suppose, which has been interesting. But it's also fascinating to see that in the traditional farmed system, and I haven't got my head around all of the answers yet myself, but certainly in farming, we spread manure over the land to kind of rejuvenate the soil, to enable us to grow the crops, and actually it feels like a balanced system. There's I think it's called Polyface Farm in the US. Or have you read the book Omnivore's Dilemma?
No.
I've read that. Really, really good read actually. But when you get the system right, the benefit of having a broad range of animals on the farm and a really diverse kind of system, it seems to be self-feeding. And there is an argument to say that, we do need cattle and pigs and chickens also on the same farm that's kind of growing the veggies and the grains and all that kind of stuff, because they complement
the mixed
each other.
farming systems.
Yeah, it seems to. Yeah. But it's interesting so that, even in your line of work, I suppose that you see that as important. Do you think it's realistic? Are we at the point where humanity just goes, what, I can buy 500 grams of mince for £1 now, and that's just the system, and we've just got used to it, and that's the trajectory? Or do you feel like we're on the point of change?
I think we're on the point of change, because our customer feedback is that actually they're leaving the supermarkets to come to Field and Flower. Like, that's the feedback we get, and lots of that is because the product isn't great in the supermarket. So I think people are looking for better quality products. If you don't hang beef, then it retains lots of water. If you don't have a traditional breed, it doesn't have the qualities that come with the fat that are in a traditional breed. There are lots of corners cut on that product that's going into the supermarket. And I think people are definitely coming to us saying, well, you know, actually, we don't want to eat meat every night of the week. It's not tasted very good anyway. And we're going to try you and see what we think. And hopefully more people go that way. But clearly, you know, protein's a big part of people's diets. And I'm not saying like we're the only way. Definitely not. But do I think that really cheap quality meat should be on the shelf, like of a supermarket for £1? No, definitely not.
Yeah, no, I agree. There are other sources, and you know, we've debated this a lot in the restaurants, and we're trying to hold people's hands, and it is about having meat less often but improving the quality, but by putting the kind of the plant-based burger on our menu next to the beef burgers, whereas traditionally we probably had a little vegetarian section or even a separate menu, and it was kind of a almost like a second-class citizen part of the menu. We're now actually going, you know what, we can be part of the solution. We just need to hold your hand on this journey. So, you know, we might have a chicken curry, and then there's a plant curry, the beef burger, and then the plant burger, and even with the nachos and all that kind of stuff. So I hope, you know, I share your optimism that the trajectory is changing, I suppose, and it's about less and better. So back to your story, moving away, you'll be pleased to hear you can now get away from the welfare side. It's been good. The trajectory of growth is great. You've now got a good number of people. Your prime business is the weekly boxes by post. Where is most of your market, and can you just explain a little bit, I suppose, about how that's gone in the last few years and what you've learned? Yeah,
sure. So probably 75% of our customer base are in London. We've done lots of marketing in London, probably 10% in the southwest, and then the rest all over the country. We deliver nationwide. We've got lots of customers in the north of Scotland, the Isle of Wight, so delivering all over the place. And business has been, it's been tough, definitely. We started in a recession. And as I said, we didn't really know what we were doing. We had to learn quickly. Lots of moving parts in our business. We thought we could be the butchers and the delivery man and the people selling the product and doing customer service all by ourselves, and quite quickly realised we couldn't. So we had to learn quickly. Cash flow was key. You know, we took money from our customers before we delivered the box. That's something that really helped. Having really good quality product. You know, we were all about the product. It had to taste great. We love our beef, and you know, that's what we looked for. And in a subscription business, it's not really a subscription business if you don't have people coming back the next week or 2 weeks later. So you know, we have to work really hard to ensure the quality stays where it is. So we've now got probably 10,000 customers, and we're delivering 1,400 boxes a week. So the business is going really well. We employ just over 20 people, and it's a really tight knit team. Definitely have a lot of people in the business now that know what they're doing, helping me in flour.
Nice.
We still absolutely love it. You know, we're 8 years in, and as I say, we've learned a lot, but we feel like there's still a massive opportunity for our business. You know, people haven't heard of us, and so that's encouraging.
How many farms do you work with?
We've probably got the best part of 40 to 50 farms. Yeah. Okay.
And are you providing a different option for them? Were they previously sort of feeding into the traditional supply route, I suppose, and now they're seeing this as an opportunity to get closer to the customer? Or?
Definitely, yeah. We pay above market price in most cases, and if not market price. The feedback from farmers is that they love working with us and getting the feedback from customers. We kind of reconnect them. So if we get a great feedback from a customer, we'll send it on to Stu, our chicken farmer, or Tom, our lamb farmer, and that's they enjoy that, I think, as much as the extra money that we pay them for their produce.
Okay. And I was chatting to Guy Singh about this. The podcast will probably have gone out by the time this one does, actually, but from Riverford, and it was around pricing, I suppose. So in the restaurant trade, you know, we're used to prices fluctuating literally on a daily, certainly a weekly basis, depending on Supply, I guess, and weather. We've had a really wet last few weeks, so certainly in the the cauliflower season at the moment, and they're being affected by that. So prices really vary. Yet he's able to guarantee some of his farmers the price that he will pay, a year in advance, and tell them he will take that, which I was quite surprised by, because generally shortage of cauliflower prices go up. How are you finding that in the meat world? Are these long-term relationships, or are you still fluctuating?
Yes, we have a supplier agreement with our farmers, but we probably talk to our farmers about pricing once a year.
Yeah.
So we because we're a subscription business, it's harder for us to change pricing. So we kind of have to set our pricing. And obviously if things change dramatically, obviously it fluctuates, but if things change dramatically, we will put a price increase on the website and notify our customers. But we're pretty stable. We tend to change our prices twice a year on the website. I think that consistency is key. And obviously, we build in a bit of margin, but we try and explain how we're working with our farmers and why that's important to them. And that we're paying above market price. So I think that's a real positive thing about our business and why farmers enjoy working with us.
And that's presumably giving farmers the confidence then to follow a much better kind of welfare husbandry kind of standards than they would if they're at the beck and call of a supermarket that phones up and says, right, it's 50p less a kilo this week because that's what our customers demand.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas they can plan for the longer term, I guess, by working with you.
Exactly. And that's so key, especially for stew and even planning ahead for Christmas with turkeys and geese. Like we will say this is, what should the price be? We have a discussion and we find out what works for both parties and we walk away happy with that. And that's definitely key, as you say, to making sure that you've got a sustainable relationship. And we don't penalise people or farmers. So if beef comes in and it's slightly over fatty or whatever, hasn't got the right confirmation, we don't do any of that kind of penalising, which supermarkets do.
Okay. You supply domestically. Have you supplied restaurants before? Have you looked at the kind of the more traditional hospitality sector, I suppose?
Yeah, we get asked quite a lot by restaurants if we supply them. We don't traditionally. We used to supply some restaurants, but we were finding it hard, especially in the early days, with carcass balance. So if we ship out 40 ribeye steaks to a restaurant, then we don't have any ribeye steaks for our customers. So it didn't work because they weren't taking the whole carcass, obviously. So and we get that, and also I think restaurants require consistency as well. And so the feedback on our ribeyes were that they tasted amazing, but some weeks they were a very different shape to the previous week, and we don't really know what that's going to look like because we're not penalising those farmers for the beef that we're getting in, what that's going to look like. And so the ribeyes did look different week on week to the restaurants we were supplying, and in the end we kind of said, well, we can't do anything about that. That's the shape of the animal. We haven't got loads and loads of cattle to kind of be choosing the right size ribeye. So
it's the whole wonky carrot thing in meat world, basically.
Exactly.
Who's going to buy the wonky beef?
Yeah, exactly. And we in the end we kind of said, well, it's not working for them, it's not working for us. So we didn't pursue the kind of restaurant trade.
Okay. Because you must have a number of contacts, I guess, speaking as a restaurateur who's always trying to get closer to the supplier. But if, so getting as close to farms as possible is key, I suppose. But it always seems to be tricky because of the abattoir and the butcher needing to get in the way. Obviously, you can't rock up at a farm and buy a live cow. So, I guess there's always going to be some level of compromise. But.
Yeah, and I think there are some guys out there doing it really well. I think Ginger Pig have really set the standard in London with how you get a beef animal from a farm in Yorkshire into, I don't know, Honest Burgers, for example. And that's there's definitely people out there that are doing it and doing it really well.
Yeah, I don't know Ginger Pig, but they're a beef supplier, aren't
they? They now do all meat, but they started in beef. Yeah,
really? Okay.
They've got some really cool butcher shops in London.
Yeah. Do they supply Honest Burger?
They did. Yeah,
they did. I'm interviewing them in a couple of weeks' time. So
okay.
I can quiz them about that. Okay, and then I'm interested in the other learnings, I suppose, in any business. These things. So great concept, cut out the middleman, straight to consumer, better product, better for the planet, better for the earth. All sounds like a no-brainer, piece of cake. Thank you very much. I'll make loads of money, buy a big house. In reality, challenging. What's some of the key challenges been? And I'll give you a clue because I know there were some issues just around packaging, for example. And how do you actually get a product to somebody's front door?
Yep.
It obviously won't fit through a letterbox.
No.
What sort of stuff did you learn about that?
Yeah, the challenge of what they call the last mile. It's difficult, right? Because we're kind of in control of most things. But then as we grew the business, we stopped delivering ourselves. And we now employ some of our own drivers, but we also use DPD for 53% of our deliveries this week. And, inevitably, DPD drivers leave boxes in the wrong place, and or they get left at depots because they've got too many deliveries, and that's a real challenge for us. So we talk a lot about doing marketing in certain areas so that we can build routes for our own drivers, because our own drivers don't make mistakes. They deliver on time and leave the box where it should be. And that's why I've got a lot of time for Able and Cole and Riverford. The way they built their models was around their own drivers and delivery routes to make sure
they seem to franchise certain parts of the country, I think, to a local delivery driver or something, I think, don't they?
They Riverford have got their franchise model, but Able and Cole have got their own drivers, and they will only deliver to certain areas of the country, certain postcodes, but that means they don't have to use a courier. But that said, I think in the early days we were struggling with our courier. It was new sending meat by post for them, perishable goods. They were quite scared of that. Our boxes come chilled, so it doesn't need to go through a refrigerated van and courier network. So there's been loads of work done by DPD to try and educate the guys at their depots and their drivers around this being a perishable product and the fact that it must be delivered, it must be left safe. And I think we're under 1% in terms of errors by drivers at the moment, and we try and rectify them quite quickly. We've got a really good customer service team there now who will phone the driver and say you've delivered it 10 doors down, you need to go back and get it and deliver it to the right door.
Really?
And I think it's habit as well. I think as soon as they've delivered one box to a customer, then they understand what works. It's normally the first time they deliver that we'll hear about an issue, but we've got a really good customer service team and we're on top of those things. But I would say that's a massive challenge. And I wish we could just deliver every box ourselves.
It's tricky, isn't it? I'm laughing because I have a Riverford delivery each week, and if I'm not in, they're supposed to leave it behind the caravan. So anyone who knows where I live, you can just go and find it on my driveway. And then the actual packaging itself, has there been some challenges around that? Because I know, I think Riverford maybe use lamb's wool, there's plastic packages, there's all sorts of stuff. What's been your experience of that?
Well, rightly so, customers are asking for environmentally friendly packaging. So we moved away from a poly box a long time ago, but there are still some people delivering in poly boxes.
A poly box is what, like a plastic insulated box?
Polystyrene, box. It's not great.
Not recyclable.
No, so exactly. So we and they're bulky and customers didn't like them, but so we've got a cardboard box, recyclable cardboard box. We have a silver inner liner that keeps the product cool with about 3 kilos of ice that goes in the box. And then our products come vacuum packed. And we're currently working with lots of different people to try and get a biodegradable vacuum pack bag. And we've done lots of tests. And I think we're probably 3 or 4 months away from that being a viable option, and that would dramatically reduce the amount of plastic that's being delivered. But I'd say we're still minimal plastic compared to if you were going to go to the supermarket, and the carbon footprint of going to the supermarket and buying big, deep trays, CFE trays of mints. And
what's the challenge with making those plastic pouches biodegradable then, do you know?
So we found that the product's leaching through, so it's actually not proper, it's not sealed enough. I don't know the technical term.
I've got an ulterior motive in asking, because we're the same in the restaurant trade. We look at where we can minimise plastic. We're the same. You vacuum pack to prolong life and avoid wastage, which is clearly important. But trying to find a plastic that is genuinely biodegradable and not just one of those theoretical biodegradable if you put it in the right waste management facility and all that kind of stuff. Really, you want to be able to chuck it in with the food waste and it will biodegrade. But
exactly,
it's a challenge.
I think we'll be there soon.
Yeah.
hopefully.
Okay. Excellent. Well, keep in touch. And then
Yeah, I
I
will.
can make sure that's the same. And then financing this growth. How have you done that? Have you crowdfunded it? Have you had to get additional investors on over the course of time? Or
Yeah, we crowdfunded 2 years ago.
right.
So it was the first time that as directors we released any equity in the business, and we went out to lots of our customers actually said, if you ever are looking to do a crowdfunding round, then let us know,
Amazing.
a fundraising round. So we went to Crowdcube,
Yeah.
and we had a 6-week campaign where we raised 877,000 from 650 people.
What was your goal?
The goal was 750.
Amazing.
Yeah, so we overfunded, which is great. And I think 52% of our investors were our customers. So, that was amazing for us, for them to show their support and, become shareholders in the business. So feedback's been great. And it was a really tough thing doing crowdfunding.
Was it? Why?
Yeah. Well, because it became a full-time job really. And then having to run the business alongside that.
Right.
And but I think we struggled with having the time to kind of get back to the amount of inquiries that we had, and you have to be on top of the forums on Crowdcube and the questions that are being asked, and obviously you have to be quite responsive. So yeah, it was just juggling everything, but in the end it worked out really well, and Crowdcube were great, and it's allowed us to kind of invest in the business and continue to grow it.
Yeah. And I hear that can be quite stressful because you get a load of money in the first week and then nothing for kind of 4 or 5 weeks, and then all of the money in the last 3 days. Was that your experience? Or
Yeah, definitely. So you have to go to the platform with kind of like at least 25% of the funds.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and you're right, you kind of get off to a good start and then it kind of slows in the middle.
Yeah.
And it did slow for us.
Right.
And so then you kind of have to push a bit harder on the marketing and have more conversations, and you have to hustle.
Yeah.
Which we did, and eventually kind of things picked up again. And then as soon as you're close to reaching your target, I think we had £100,000 put in the last 48 hours.
Yeah.
Like that,
I think once you're close enough, Crowdcube seem to put it out there, and then that becomes almost self-fulfilling once people see there's enough people invested. So.
That's right. Yeah, you're competing with another 30 people that are 30 businesses that are on the platform.
Yeah. Yeah. No, fascinating model. I think that's the one good thing that came out the back of the recession is this ability to ask lots of people for a little bit of money rather than one person for a lot. So what's the plans from here then? How much bigger do you want to grow? What do you think is realistic?
I think in terms of our growth, we haven't set any real targets. We really enjoy what we're doing. Clearly, we want to keep growing the business. We think that there's lots of opportunity for us, and all the time that we're growing, we're helping farmers, and that's a great thing. But we want to get to a point where, we look at Riverford and Abel and Cole and we think, well, why can't we try and aspire to be that size and do what those guys have done? Because they've done an incredible job. So, really hoping that we have another 8 years like the 8 years we've just had.
Is the challenge more around the demand for the product or the supply of the product? Do you see, is it easy to fulfill demand if you get a kind of exponential growth all of a sudden? Or?
Yeah, I think we definitely have to plan it and manage it, and that's what my business partner does.
Well delegated. You just get more people in.
Yeah, my job is to get the customers and look after them, and James is to make sure the product comes in the door. But we have lots of people, as I said earlier, lots of farmers that want to come and supply us, and there are. We've diversified our range as well, so we do veal, mutton. We're about to start hopefully doing goat. We have fish, which has been really popular. So we've diversified. We still want to be known for being a company that sells high quality meat and fish. We're not going to start selling vegetables, but we think that there are enough farmers out there to help us grow at the rate we're currently growing. Okay. But it does take a bit of planning.
Complicated when you get into fish, isn't it? Because animals at least stay in a field if you put a fence up, whereas fish move all around the world. How have you managed to get a similar welfare standard approach to fish? Because it's complicated.
Yeah, with fish, it's something we've been selling for a couple of years. And we have Chalk Stream Trout and Loch Duart, who do our salmon up in Scotland, both farmed. And then we work with a fishmonger who's based in Shoreham, who is buying dayboat caught fish from market every day. So, and we do a catch of the day box. So that's one way around kind of the fish supply issue, is to say to our customers, buy a catch of the day box, and we'll put what comes in that day from that boat in that box at a set price. And that's working really well. It's been popular.
So logistically then, you're having to get that sent to you because you're packaging it at the same place as the meat.
So he's currently buying the product. He's a master fishmonger. He's then packing it, labeling it for us, and then it comes into us. But it's come in within 24 hours and then out to the customer.
And then straight out. Yeah. It's always, these things are always more complicated than you imagine behind the scenes, I suppose. So, so I guess you're comfortable then that you're not going to need to compromise on the ethics as you grow. There's enough people that share your ethos. I guess that's why you're writing those standards, your own standards. It makes it a lot easier to then judge whether the people who are knocking on your door meet your criteria. Because is it still the case that you need to meet every person that's producing product for you?
Yeah, certainly we try to. As we've grown the business, we're still a fairly small business, so it's difficult to get out as much as we used to. But that's why we're putting our welfare standards in place. Yeah. We know that there are enough farmers in the West Country working systems that we traditionally buy from in the way that we started our farm. So we can't see there being a problem. Clearly, there will come a point if we became a huge business where that might challenge. But at the moment, we're still a fairly small business, so I don't think it's an issue.
It's good to know that there's enough farmers that are still farming that way, because I think you get worried as a consumer that they're all compromising and just
the cows disappearing from the fields.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so they are also supplying presumably the local kind of butchers and farm shops and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So all of our beef that's reared on home farm obviously comes to us, but then we have other beef farmers that will supply us with a percentage of what's fit, on their farm for that week. So they will be supplying other people as well. And Stu, our chicken farmer, I think we probably take, 80% of his chicken every week, and then he'll supply some local restaurants and farm shops.
Okay. And this issue around customer choice, a guy from Riverford got particularly, animated, shall we say, when we were chatting about this, because he fundamentally believes that, quite all too often the customer gets too much choice. Mm-hmm. We touched on this when we were chatting earlier about the thing with baby gem lettuce, and Tesco, for example, might want a load of baby gems for the weekend because it's a beautiful sunny weather and it's a barbecue weekend, and they go to their supplier, and the supplier is so terrified of not being able to supply that they'll end up flying kind of baby gems in from California or something like that just to fulfill demand. Whereas actually my perspective would be the customer doesn't mind. He wants some lettuce. He doesn't mind too much what he gets. So Guy is very adamant around not giving people too much choice with his veg boxes and saying, look, this is what's coming this week. It's in season. It's ready now, because he doesn't know whether his Romanescos are going to be ready in early September or late October. It depends on the weather. Do you think there's an argument for similar in meat, in the fact it would be a lot easier with that whole carcass perspective if people just ate what they were given, or is it easier in meat because it's less of a seasonal product?
Yeah, I mean, it's easier, definitely easier than the challenges that Guy has with the seasonality of fruit and vegetables. I think a beef animal this week is a beef animal next week. We know pretty much how many steaks we're going to get off it, and the trends that we get from our customers kind of dictate how many animals we need, and we're quite good at kind of forecasting that out. The answer to that question really is that if we had more flat iron steaks ordered than we had coming through the 10 beef animals this week, then we would phone the customers and say, we've actually haven't got your flat irons. Can we swap them with an onglet, for example, and put that to them and explain why? And I think that's critical, is the communication, and it's the same for fish as well, particularly, is to say, well, this is why this has happened. And actually customers are really reasonable, and they're like, well, thanks for letting me know. Like, that's absolutely fine. And there isn't so much of an issue with that.
I think it's nice. It's the same in the restaurant. I think if it gives an opportunity to actually articulate how strong your supply chain is, isn't it? Yeah. So if our customers come in on a So normally a Monday or Tuesday, and they get very angry about the fact that we might not have any fish. And I'm always like, look, it was a really rough weekend, so the boats haven't been out. They couldn't go out on Monday morning. So there's the reason we don't have any fish is the last time the day boats that you can see out the window in one of my restaurants was out was Thursday. And actually, if people get that, they're kind of like, oh, that's great. And then we say, look, so we decided not to fly the equivalent across from California, but we just, we've got this fish today instead, and people love it. It is an education piece. It's why I do these podcasts, is I think it's so important that the consumer starts to understand a little bit more about our food and drink supply chain and where stuff comes from, and
that's
compromises a little bit more, I suppose. So you've had lots of roles, from literally everything by the sounds of it, from being the butcher, the chef. What now in your role in your day-to-day life gives you the most kind of buzz and the most reward?
I think being up at the butchery, so operations at the moment, spending a lot of time there in preparation for Christmas, to see the product going into boxes and then to see customer feedback is what still kind of drives us on. And we know that we're producing a really good product and delivering a really good service for our customers. In terms of my role, I still wear kind of many hats, and I think I've become more defined as we've brought in people to the business that know what they're doing. So I don't have to be the head of finance anymore, not my forte. So we, Farah and I, kind of look at kind of bigger picture stuff, I guess. So just, managing supply chains and looking at new business opportunities and ensuring that, the business is going in the right direction. We're not, hands-on, although I'll be in the fridge at Christmas packing Christmas boxes when we need to be. But it's nice to kind of not be working in the business, but, it's a bit of a cliche, but working on the business.
Yeah, nice. How far in advance do people need to be booking their Christmas turkeys?
Well, we started taking orders, I think at the end of September. People were placing their Christmas turkey orders, which always amazes me. Yeah. But we were getting lots of orders daily at the moment. And Stu's doing our turkeys this year, and I think we've got 800. So when they're gone, they're gone. Okay. So we would say try and get your order in by kind of the first week of December.
Okay. Yeah. That's my challenge. Where are we now? Okay, now we've got probably just about as this podcast goes out, I suspect. We're running a few weeks ahead. And then is there any advice that you've either been given in this business journey or anything you've learned? Because I think a lot of people who listen to this podcast are either new businesses in the world of hospitality and food and drink, or thinking of getting into it and they want to give up their office jobs. But any terrible advice you've heard and you go, just ignore that, or any really good advice where you go, whatever you do, this is a little nugget for you?
Yeah, I think looking back, I'd say you have to be really resilient. You'll get knocks and you got to get back up and keep going. And I said to someone this week, it's about being in the game, and just making sure that you're there. Sometimes it's just survival. Yeah. And that's fine. Also, I think focus on product, because there's lots of companies out there that we're looking at in our space, recipe box companies that are kind of reverse engineering their businesses off the back of how many boxes they need to kick out for it to be successful. And actually, I don't think they're focused enough on product and customer service. And I think that's massive. I think you have to know your product, you have to understand it, and you have to be able to deliver really good customer service. Don't just put a pure chat on your website and expect that to be the way that you can look after a customer. So I would say, product, customer service, the two massive things that sometimes it seems to me like can be overlooked a bit.
Yeah, it's disappointing sometimes. I think that almost the necessity of financial survival, like you say, you reverse engineer, you go, well, actually to survive, we need to sell this many boxes. So it's whatever it takes. And you like to think that stay authentic, stay close to your ethics and ethos of what you believe in, and ultimately that will come out okay. So
exactly. You have to be able to back up what you're doing as well, and that's massive. And that's why we're writing our own welfare standards, which is quite a big task for a small business.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the key, and I always say this to my team as well, is that whatever decision is made, and it becomes harder as you employ more and more people, but they've got to bear in mind that ultimately I need to be able to sit or stand in front of a customer and look them in the eye and give them a justified reason as to why we made that decision. And if we have made a compromise, the reason that we've made it. And then if we can't do that, I'd rather not sell the product.
Yeah, exactly.
We've given prawns as an example when I was chatting to Mitch Tonks on the podcast not long ago as well about, I wasn't willing to sell prawns because most of them come in from Vietnam and Asia and are grown in big vats and pumped full of antibiotics.
Yeah, it's an issue.
And admittedly, there are some that aren't, and I think we've got some on the Christmas menu that we've sourced the right way. But yeah, it's always a challenge. So hopefully, I think what you're doing is genuinely brilliant. I think you're part of the solution for the disillusionment that I've had, a little bit in the food supply chain and the compromises that have been made. But they're compromises that I think have just come through to a lack of education with the wrong people, focused on price. And I think as we're learning this and we're learning the compromises that we make and we're learning a bit more about the climate emergency and we're learning that it's all well and good, not throwing a plastic bottle away, but actually diet, what we choose to eat and where we choose to eat has the biggest environmental impact out of anything that we do. People like you and what you stand for are doing such a great thing on both sides, because you're helping out the producer and the farmer to have the confidence to farm in a better way, and you're helping the consumer a little bit less guilty kind of eating, because food and hospitality is supposed to be fun, isn't it? We're supposed to sit down with our family, tuck into amazing food, and that's kind of one of the purposes of life. I think we're lucky as a species that it's not, we don't just eat to live, we have this amazing palate. So thank you for doing what you do.
No problem.
Where should people go to find out more about you, either the website or social media?
Yes, we've got an Instagram, Facebook, Twitter handle, which is @fieldandflower, and our website is fieldandflower.co.uk.
Amazing that you've actually got them all the same with underscores and dashes and all that kind of stuff.
I hope I've got that right. I think I have.
I believe you have.
Yeah.
Yes, good. Excellent. Well, thank you for sparing the time. Good luck. I will watch with pleasure. And if you do decide to go back into supplying the restaurant industry again, then let me know. We'll be a customer.
I will do, Mark. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast, and remember that on the website humansofhospitality.co.uk every week we put on some show notes and some links through to the various websites or social media that are mentioned, and we also do a nice little breakdown of that week's conversations into specific topics, so you can jump through the podcast and just listen to some of the highlights if you wish. If you've not done so already, if you could leave us a review on iTunes or one of the other podcast players of your choice, that would be hugely appreciated. Thank you so much, and we'll be out with another episode next Monday.